Now this picture that we're going to be working with, I drew this out here just to save us time. I'm just going to do a little bit of measuring for the demo this morning, but the drawing here is basically based upon taking measurements using my proportion wheel and measuring off of my smaller 8x10 photo and then transferring the measurements. And this is essentially the same as really a grid system, except instead of drawing grids on your canvas and on your picture, you're just actually doing the individual measurements. And the beauty of this, if I were to take this picture and say, okay, I want to paint that, I'm going to freehand it in there, I can just start drawing, and hopefully with some experience you do a reasonably good job. But that first mark, if it's not correct, everything else from there is going to be incorrect, and it will tend to become more and more incorrect as you go. Whereas with this method, when I find, let's say, a point, let's see the point of this barn here, the point of that peak there, and let's say I want to start from that in terms of my drawing. I could eyeball it and hopefully get it reasonably right. But if I measure and get that exactly right by measuring here and transferring it, then at least when I start my drawing, I'm starting in exactly the right place. And that greatly increases the chances that the rest of the drawing will be closer to accurate. And if accuracy is what you're wanting. And because from then on, your drawing, you're basically just, you're eyeballing it and creating a proportional judgment, what I call intuitive math, which drawing and painting is. It's just intuitive math, because everything in here is just simply proportional relationships, and with geometric figures here of one kind or another. So it's very helpful if you can get those proportional relationships correct. The more reference points I create, for example, if I find a reference point here and a reference point here and then start drawing in between, I'm going to be much more accurate in my drawing. And just by making two measurements, the more accurate I want to be, the more measurements I make. I do this with portraits. The more reference points, the corner of the eye, the corner of the mouth, so forth, I find, and then start drawing from there, I'm just going to be that much more accurate.
You draw in graphic or
Actually, I usually use a carbon pencil, which I left at home, so I'm borrowing this pencil to finish this off. But I left a couple of measurements to the end just to demonstrate how it works. So, looking at this picture, I'm just going to put it here just for simplicity. Let's say the rule of thumb in doing this is find points of intersection. In other words, find a point like where this mountain comes to a peak, or where these two ridges come together. Well, that point is a point you want to find. You don't want to try to find a point just somewhere along this ridge. That is not very helpful. But if you find the apex of it and then where it intersects with someplace else, then that gives you some very useful information. So for example, let me start out by finding the intersection point of this ridge where this ridge meets. And I'll measure the horizontal first, and it is 2 1/16 of an inch. That's a very precise measurement, so it might as well be precise. I look at 2 1/16 of an inch on my circular wheel. That lines up with almost exactly 5 inches. So I'll go up here and I mark off 5 inches, okay? And now I measure down from the top here is 1 3/4. No, 1 is that right? No, 1 1/2, okay. 1 5/8. 1 5/8. That's going to be on my video, you know. 1 5/8. If I look on here, 1 5/8, that is the same as 3 7/8. So I go down 3 7/8 is right there. So where that intersects right there, that's that point right there. And going out at a slight angle here, a little less than 45 degrees, mountain goes off this way, and this other one goes at a little bit more severe angle, about like that, okay? Now another easy point to find is right along the edge here. Looking at the edge, down it is a little over 1.5. 1.5 on my small wheel is 3 5/8. So 3 5/8 is right there, which is something I could have determined even without a measurement, because if I look at my picture, it almost lines up exactly with this intersection as it does here. It's just a little bit higher. So that point right there is where that mountain starts.